All right, we're going to take a look at the first day of the cross-examination of Alex Murdaugh. I believe it's probably a missed opportunity by the state.
I agree.
But in my car is where I tried to keep it.
And when you had it in your dash, would you have it face up or face down?
I didn't have any particular manner in which I stored it anywhere.
There was no rhyme or reason to it, is what you're telling the jury? How you had it in the dash?
There may be occasions where I had it in the dash for some particular reason, but there were a lot of times where it probably was in the dash for no particular reason other than that's where I put it. Just like put it on the seat or in the cup holder.
You said there were particular reasons why you might put it in the dash. What would those reasons be?
And it could be any number of things. If I'm going somewhere where I want somebody to see it, then I would put it in the dash. If there's another reason for somebody to see it, like for instance, if I get pulled over, I might have it in the cup holder so an officer could see it when he walked up.
Why would you do that? Why would you have it in the cup holder? You're not saying you were on official business, are you?
No, I'm not saying I'm on official business.
Why would you want it in the cup holder if you got pulled over?
Because I found that law enforcement oftentimes is friendlier when you're in law enforcement.
When you're law enforcement. So you considered yourself law enforcement?
No, sir. I can't say that I considered myself law enforcement.
You carried a badge on you as an assistant solicitor for 2 decades, roughly?
From around 98, so yes, sir, for 2 decades.
You would ride with it sometimes.
Okay, let's stop it.
Sitting in the front dash facing.
That's correct.
And you would put it in the cup holder so that law enforcement would see you if you got pulled over, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So you didn't consider yourself law enforcement?
I personally didn't consider myself to be law enforcement, no, sir.
All right. So you were just using having this badge to your advantage and taking license with it. Is that correct?
I guess in some circumstances that is accurate.
That was a good example of what the first hour and a half of this cross-examination consisted of. I have no idea why they felt that that was so important to show the jury in about 25 minutes worth of questioning that Alex Murdaugh had a badge of some sort because he was an assistant solicitor, because his father was the elected solicitor for decades and his grandfather before him, which they went into great detail about. And we heard question after question like this for the first 25 minutes of the cross, basically establishing that Alex had a badge because he was an assistant solicitor, which was a volunteer position. He wasn't even paid for. He had like 5 criminal trials over 10 years, and that he would sometimes carry his badge out where officers could see it. And then eventually they got to some video where he had his badge out of his pocket as he's walking down the hall. Patrick, what do those things do with this case?
So I think that all that proved was that the person that you've already proven lied and cheated over and over against people he supposedly cared about and people who trusted him to represent their interests. You just proved that he may have used his badge to maybe get out of some speeding tickets and potentially use it to allow him to go at the boating accident in 2019, right? Go to the hospital and flash his badge so that maybe he looked authoritative, I guess. I don't know. Did Alex Murdaugh abuse the badge that he was carrying? Maybe. What does that have to do with the murder of Maggie and Paul? I just don't know. It was a complete waste
I was
of time.
completely confused by this and very frustrated by it. I remember thinking, okay, now they're just going to sink their claws into him. There's so much that this guy's done that's bad. That's awful, right? We already know about it. It's already been testimony at trial. And they went for 35 minutes about this stupid badge. And then the point they were trying to
and his family
didn't
history
even have to do with this case. It was about the case involving his son, Paul, a year prior. It was crazy.
Right.
And it was just beating around the bush. And I think as we're going to...
And that was the entire day.
That was most of the first day was about this badge and this other case.
The rest of the time was on the financial crimes one by one by one. He asked, did you look this person in the eye? Did you look this specific person in the eye? And did you lie to this person? And was this person trusting you? And every single time Alex Murdaugh was like, I don't know if I went over that specific document, but yes, I did lie to that person. I don't know if I did it face to face. I didn't meet with all my clients, but yes, I did lie to this person. I did steal that person's money. And he said it over and over and over again. And all the state's response is, well, you just want it to be that easy, don't you? But I have a lot of questions for you. And he did.
Yeah, this was one of the most highly anticipated cross-examinations that I've ever seen on television. I mean, you normally don't get the opportunity to question the defendant, especially one that you know has done some really awful bad things. But they kept beating a dead horse. When they weren't beating around the bush about the badge and these other things, they were beating a dead horse about something that we've already known about. And this went on for hours and hours.
And then they kept on beating.
Yeah, it just seemed like a huge missed opportunity. It just wasn't anything new. The point of cross-examination is to make that defendant very uncomfortable. And they were never really able to make him uncomfortable. There were some times, but the first day, he just breezed through that first 2 hours because they're just asking about stuff that either has nothing to do with the murder of Maggie and Paul, or it's stuff the jury already knew about in detail. So there was nothing new that he was having to elicit. In fact, he was just able to explain himself a little bit, or just say, I did it, I'm sorry, I did all these other things, I'm sorry about them, but I did not do this.
We established that.
Yeah,
that's at the hospital.
Was 45 minutes to get to this. That this is the Mallory Beach.
To get to that moment.
This has nothing to do with this murder trial. This was a Mallory Beach.
This was 2019.
The boat accident his son was involved in, and he went to the hospital, and they had security footage showing him flashing his badge where everybody could see it, because they were saying that he was intimidating witnesses or trying to cock up a story for his son Paul at that time. Now, even if that's true, what does that have to do at all with whether he killed Paul?
That part of it I don't know. And we'll just drop in, and I guarantee you, I didn't timestamp this. So I guarantee you, though, what we're going to drop into is him asking questions about specific cases where he stole money.
And keep in mind, if you haven't been keeping up with this trial, an entire week was spent where they had witness after witness from his law practice come in and testify about all the money that he had stolen from these specific clients. And the state just wanted to go over it again and again and again, but it never made him uncomfortable because everybody's already aware of it. And Alex just got to say, yeah, I did it. I'm sorry.
What was the purpose that the state allegedly wanted this evidence in? What were they trying to prove? Was it to prove that Alex Murdaugh is a liar and a bad guy?
Right. That's propensity evidence. They went on and on saying, we're not doing this to show a propensity for bad conduct or propensity for lying or propensity for bad acts, which is not allowed. We're using it to show this motive that he was trying to distract from the financial crimes by killing his son and wife, which we still think makes no sense and is a bogus argument. But this was definitely not the case they were making in this line of questioning. And
well, good. Well, we'll do that. But the point that I'm asking you is, it's not just as simple as some paperwork. You had to sit down and deal with these people and convince them that you were telling them the truth in order to steal this money, correct?
That may not be true, because in some situations, I may not have had to do that. They may have just trusted me to do it. Okay. So that's my point, is I misled them. There's no question about that. But did I sit down in each particular instance and like you're breaking it down step by step? I can't say that. I can say I did wrong. I stole money that wasn't mine, and I shouldn't have done it.
Right.
And it was terrible what I did.
All right, well, let's look at States 330. And this is Arthur Badger in the EPS case, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You remember what the total recovery?
I told you we were going to just drop in randomly in that section, and he was going to be talking about the financial case, and there he is, talking about the financial case, talking about staring in people's eyes, talking about stealing. And it gave Alex Murdaugh the opportunity to just say, yes, I stole. I don't know if I looked this specific person in the eye going over this document that you're holding in your hand. But yes, I did mislead them. I did steal from them. They did trust me, and I did wrong.
Yeah, and I talked to my parents have been following this case on a daily basis, just like us. And I asked my mom when I missed some of this, and she said, oh, this is just stuff we already know. They just keep bringing this up over and over and over. We sat through days of this, of all these things of him stealing. He admits he stole it. Like, this is all just known. It's like they made their point. You could see them doing this 2 or 3 times and then saying, you know, we don't have to go through all the rest of this, Mr. Murdaugh, because we're already aware that you stole from dozens of your clients and it's millions of dollars. And you admit that, right? And he said, yeah, I admit it. Okay, well, I'm not going to waste the jury's time. We're going to now move into, you know, hopefully they would say something that has to do with these murders, because they didn't talk a lot about the night of the murders. Like, The biggest thing was Alex took the stand. He says, I lied about where I was the night of the murders to the SLED investigators. I said I never went up to the kennels, but I had been up to the kennels that night, but I didn't kill them. He had this whole story about how he was paranoid that they were going to start suspecting that he did it if he told them that he was up there and he was in a paranoid state with pills in his pockets, high on drugs, and all these other things. And he got to say over and over, because I don't trust SLED. Because this whole defense is going to be about how SLED did a terrible investigation and that SLED had it out for them anyway because of their investigation into the boat crash case. And so he got to say over and over about why he distrusts SLED to explain himself, which was helpful for the defense. And I'm sure the state didn't want the jury hearing over and over, but they got to hear it over and over because he got to explain himself constantly.
Yeah, you would think that if you had the opportunity to cross-examine the defendant in one of the most high-profile cases of the century, that you would have gone in ready to go, at least at the very beginning, with a hard-hitting strategy. And it was like all of the air, after about 10 minutes, it's like the air in the room's just gone. Everything's deflated. The energy's gone. Everybody's like, whoa, dude, get to the point. Stop asking open-ended questions. And in a separate video, we talk a little bit about how Mr. Waters conducted the cross-examination. And there's a lot of commentary he throws in there. There's a lot of argumentation. There's a lot of compound questions. And really a lot of things about it that were quite improper. And also the things we learned not to do. He really gave us a pretty good survey course in how not to conduct a cross-examination.
Yes, the danger of asking open-ended questions in a cross-examination and what comes back at you. And we'll explain that because there were several instances of this where they asked bad questions and got very unhelpful answers from the witness. So,
and just so everybody knows, he did spend the second day opened up with more on the financial crimes.
Right.
So they spent the entire end of the day. The first part of his cross-examination, he spent about 45 minutes establishing that the Murdaugh family is well known and that he comes from a line of prosecutors and he had a badge and he may have used it to get out of some speeding tickets or something, and to kind of show that he had some kind of authority in the boat wreck case in 2019. And then they spent the rest of the day talking about whether or not he lied, which they spent a week proving without a doubt that Alex Murdaugh lied to everybody when it came to those financial crimes. And the beginning of the next day, they spent probably an hour to 2 hours going over the financial crimes before they got to anything about June 7th.
Right. And all they accomplished, this stuff is already out there. It was worse before he had the opportunity, being Alex, to come up there and kind of explain himself. He would take out $1 million loan here and a $100,000 loan there, and he'd have to ultimately pay these things back. And it spiraled out of control to the point where he was stealing money. He says it wasn't right, but he was able to give some context to it, whereas before you were going, what in the world is he doing with all this money that he's stealing? How could he possibly be doing it? Is he like a drug lord?
And it gave him the opportunity to fully discuss his drug addiction and the amount of pills he was taking. He said that he was taking up to 50 oxycodone a day sometimes.
Which it was some of the stuff.
Which kind of it put into context and explained a lot of the behaviors that the witnesses from his law firm and Shelley Smith said that he was always fidgety. They said that he would come in at late hours. He would come in and he'd be erratic sometimes. Well, all of that seems to support that he was a drug addict and that he was taking a lot of pills. But the question everybody's saying, well, man, if all that money is going to drugs, he'd be dead. But he had the opportunity to explain that, no, he also had all of these debts that you were just talking about. It did give an opportunity to humanize him.
It gave an opportunity for him to humanize himself and explain himself. Whether you have any different opinion of him or not, it's an opportunity he normally would not get, because normally the defendant's not on the stand. Yeah. Normally, you're not asking open-ended questions that allow them to explain themselves. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like us. You'll hear more about this trial until it's over, and then probably some afterward.